just give him what he wants.
Right this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Ketiate, and it's four. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.
Hello and welcome to Not Another Arsenal Podcast, aka the Hector Bellerin of Arsenal Podcast. My name is Mike Hers, your host, and gentlemen, we are finally back after a long month or so break, so to say. We took the winter break serious, Other leagues do it. England should do it. We adopted it. We, having the Spanish speakers, so we went with La Liga calendar, if you will. So we took some time off. No, reality is I got a new job. My schedule changed a little bit. My hours changed a little bit. Plus, the last 2 weeks of the year is just absolutely insane with the holidays, New Year's, and everything. All three of us have very young families, well documented on that. So life got really chaotic. But Arsenal are in good performance right now. We're finally seeing some free-flowing goals. We're not set pieces, not own goals, actual goals. Our striker still hasn't figured out how to score one, but everybody else has. So 6 points clear. City has dropped points. I can't think of a more successful hate watch, back-to-back hate watch, in these last 2 game days. So we're gonna be a little bit of random. We're gonna dig into a little bit. We're gonna talk about a bunch of stories relating to Chelsea, Manchester United, Aston Villa with Unai Emery, of course, and maybe we might talk about the Arsenal eventually. So first and foremost, as always, the introductions. Kelly, welcome back, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like that meme, that what kind of like the Wojak meme where they're just like luxuriating in everything. I feel like that's me right now. I mean, this was like the interesting thing about the Christmas window is that you can fundamentally be in a different spot than you were a week and a half ago. Because I mean, I was on the rack. I was in despair not long ago, as I want to be. I'm doing that thing that a lot of us do, is protect ourselves against the inevitable. It's like, oh my God, here comes City. They're marching. We can't kick the ball in the fucking goal. Like, what are we doing here? And then it's amazing what happens when you get 2 good results, and they do 2 results, and we're 6 clear and on the run. And now, so the injury bug has finally come to bit Liverpool, and like a lot of these other clubs are starting to who have had this pristine injury luck. It reassesses what we feel, because we did well through a period of bad injuries. And like, it's just the ability that this league in this game, especially when you play in England and you have this ridiculous Christmas period, that's pretty much one of a kind in the world, how your fortunes can rise and fall, and your opinions and feelings towards your club can rise and fall in a matter of, not even weeks, but days. And it's so nice to come back after more privately going through it on the back channel. I apologize to a couple group chats that have had to suffer my bullshit, but it's nice to be able to kind of collect our thoughts and feel like we got through some hard times. And again, we're over halfway done, and we're 6 points clear, and we're getting players back, not losing them. And our direct rivals are dropping players and dropping points, and they're not necessarily pointed in the right direction. So for all the times for us to come back and pod and take time off, I feel like we're coming over on the other side. And again, you don't want to say any of the words, but it's feeling better than it's felt in a while, I think. And yeah, very little professional wrestling talk tonight, probably.
Professional wrestling, yes, of course. I was about to ask you a question, Chris, but first and foremost, the introductions. Chris, how's everything going, buddy? Haven't seen you on screen for a very long time. How's life?
Good, man. As I posted on X, everybody's getting some tonight. Everybody's getting some tonight. I don't mean something good. I mean something bad. I've been off for 2 weeks from work, and I've managed to fill the time with things like eating and drinking and playing games with my kids and trash talking every fan base on the planet on X. So I've kept busy, but I want to bring all of that energy that's happening online to the podcast world. And I've got my wine here because that's the only alcohol I have left in the house. I see Kelly's pouring a nice Guinness, in his glass, which is great. Mike, you better have a drink on hand because it's going to be
It's
gonna be a fun one tonight.
It is. It's just coffee. I expect it to be a long one, but right before I went into the podcasting room, I told my wife, you know what I'm craving? If you don't mind, if you could just deliver me a coffee, that would be just absolutely lovely. She came through, boys. So
wow,
here I am.
You got to keep her.
Good lady.
Chris, on your I don't, I've came to the conclusion, Chris, that I'm okay with you working. You being off of work. So I'm like violently. I've been violently.
Where are you going with this, Mike?
Yeah, seriously. Land the plane.
Muting so many accounts. Like I muted so many accounts on Twitter, right? And every time I think I'm like, I must be making some leeway in the millions of users, and like only a fraction of that is football Twitter, right? And when I see like these insane fucking takes, I just like I mute, I move on. I mute, I move on. But then recently, there's been an increase of stupid fucking comments on my Twitter account. Surprise, surprise. And I thought to myself, why does this keep on popping up? It's fucking Chris. Chris has so much time he's fighting with half of Twitter.
What I'm trying to do, Mike, is find all the accounts you haven't muted or blocked yet and bring them up into your algorithms so you can mute and block them. I mean, this is a public service to you, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm doing you a service. You should be happy I'm not working right now.
Yeah. So an apology and a thank you is in order here, clearly.
Exactly, Mike.
Clearly, very much.
Put some respect on my name, Mike.
Put some respect on my name. So let's we're gonna rewind a little bit here. We're not gonna exactly like flat out review these games, but I do have a question because I had an interesting kind of way of looking at the last few wins that we had. Obviously, we had I think it's more or less, Chelsea was the beginning of me like I was crying about it because I felt we should have won that game. We're talking about the 1-1 versus Chelsea, the one that Chelsea won, and that put them firmly in the title contention. All those that almost a month ago.
Ooh.
Yeah, a lot of things happen in a month, boys. Okay, here's the thing that I was like, just food for thought, right? Like Brentford, we won that game 2-0. Aston Villa, obviously, we lost, but then after that, we had a series of wins versus Bruges, Wolves, Everton, Palace on penalties, sure, rotated squad, Brighton. Those games, statistically speaking, we had more shots on target, more XG on the majority of those games, more possession. Everything indicated that I should have been enjoying those games. And with the dysfunctional starting 11, we're going into these games. Obviously, Gabriel was injured. We were managing the load between Timber. Calafiori was out for a few games. We didn't have our wingers, if I'm not mistaken. And I never had such a mismatch on eye test versus stats, in which all the stats are like, we're fucking brilliant. We could have won that game from 4. And during all of those games, I was like, why did we look like shit? And why did it take a own goal for us to win? And I was like, I never found it more difficult to marry the eye test versus the stats. Now, the reality was we were creating everything, but we just looked completely deprived of any creativity at all. Is there any feelings towards it yourself? Could you make sense of it all, Kelly? Or is that more of a me thing? Because I'm already with the stats thing.
No, Mikey. I think I went along this ride with you too, because you and I come from a similar position, I think, and I think it rubs the wrong way sometimes. But we have shared the opinion, or largely that you don't win something until you win something, and until we win something significant, these narratives are going to continue, and they're going to have this stick to beat us with. Now, the better we get, the better the chance that we're going to have this. But basically, what people are saying is that you can't win the big trophies. You never won the Champions League, which we haven't, and you haven't won the Premier League in 20 some odd years, which we haven't. And so you earn the benefit of the doubt by getting things over the line, right? And so I think that my reaction when we get in these runs that we just can't kick the ball in the goal is that, like, okay, it doesn't matter if we're having good patterns of play. It doesn't matter. Like, ultimately, we need to figure out a way to kick the ball in the net, and failing that, we are going to have bad results. If we don't solve this particular issue, it's going to be bad. And we deserve to take a little bit of pounding if we're getting a 3.5 XG and we're drawing 1-1, or we're having all this stuff and we're relying on people flinging the ball into their own net. It's not sustainable, and it's something we should be frustrated with. Now, here's the deal, though. I think that in a season, the idea is to put offensively is to keep the ball in their end a lot and put as much pressure on them as possible. The only time that I can think of a club winning the Premier League while just kind of like scamming, earmuffs, XG, or like spending very little time in the opponent's defensive half, right, is basically Leicester. And they won the league with like 80 points in like the flukiest season ever. That's the only season that they could have possibly done that. And it's because they basically got 3 chances a match, scored 2 or 3 of them, and they did it for like 40 games. And they were in the championship like 4 years later. You can't do that over time. That is a once in a century outlier for being able to play like that. And that's even doing that with, ended up being Mahrez and Vardy being 2 of the better Premier League players of their era, and Conte, 3 of the better Premier League players of their era, just happened to be on the same team while this other shit was happening too. So like really failing a juggernaut type of team that we're playing against, which I don't think City's a juggernaut. I don't think we kind of keep waiting for them to wake up, and they kind of don't really do it. And we'll touch on the fact that all of a sudden all of their players are fucking dead now after today. Like, never say thank you, Chelsea, but holy shit, thank you, Chelsea, because they were just goon squatting their entire team.
Always like
without Caicedo too.
Oh, without Caicedo there, who probably would have. With Caicedo on, he would have gotten a red card in this match, and City. So like not having Caicedo there would have been helpful.
In one sense, yeah.
But like, we're waiting for like Liverpool to come around, and now Liverpool are starting to take some of the same medicine when they were winning, when they were playing fucking horribly. Now they're getting popped by like once in a season worldly goals and dropping points. Like, it's just one of those things where this might be one of those seasons where just the team that consistently defends their box really well and consistently has the ball in the attacking third, even if they don't have an elite goal scorer, like this might be one of those kind of like once every 2 or 3 or 4 year kind of smaller outlier things where it's like, it's not a great league this year, and a team that's really consistently good defensively and really consistently threatening attacking wise is going to win the league with 85 points or something. And fucking A, let's have it be this year. But I think you and I kind of are always of the thing, which is probably not, it's a psychologically healthy way to watch sports, is where you're kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop without having more information, more history to draw upon that. Oh, they're just going to get through this. Well, Salah, we obviously have a player like Mo Salah who's going to score 20 league goals and have 10 league assists. So that guy is going to come back and just start whacking the ball, and then we're going to be fine. I think it becomes, because we have to platoon that really big part of football, it means that it's harder to envision who's going to put on the cape and swoop in, right? Because sometimes it's Trossard, sometimes it's Declan Rice, sometimes it's an atypical way to do this at an elite level because we don't have an elite output player. And I think maybe that adds to my concern, because you can always go Thierry is going to save us. He scores 30 plus goals even like Robin Van Persie is going to save us, right? Like, you go through elite goal scorers, like Haaland is going to save us. Like, when you can't do the thing that you have to do to win matches and get points, you feel like you always have this talisman. And we might be the first team that I can think of that is this good without a talisman. There's no elite output player on our team. And I think that's what maybe makes it scary and unprecedented and nervy. That's like, okay, we're in this spot. It's 1-1. We've been battering them. We can't get over the line. What the fuck happens now? Like, when own goal is still like your third highest scorer in the season, it makes it harder to envision it. But maybe it's just, maybe we are a new wave of collectivism. What does Sebi's guy Zohan say? The warmth of collectivism. Maybe we're feeling the warmth of collectivism and relating to scoring goals and getting stuff over the line. That's an Americanism, by the way. You can Google it.
I got to clip that for Sebi.
No Venezuelans or South Americans. Look that up, though. That probably won't go so well for you.
Yes, absolutely not. No. To Kelly's point, Chris. Yes, we so we are being slightly pessimistic, and I do think that in that particular run that we had, in which we were playing like crap, we don't have a talisman. We were just like getting over the line. We were winning ugly, that is for sure, but we were winning. So I'm I'm going to say the more optimistic viewer of it all was like, dude, calm down. We won. Who cares? Hey, we're winning right now without very important pieces. So who cares? Right. So I think they were trying to rationalize and say, hey, and I think my buddy Jordan said this in a chat room with all three of us, where it says, hey, if we're winning when we're playing like shit with so many missing pieces, it comes to, you could arrive to the conclusion that we're going to win when we have all of our pieces. And it kind of seems like that's gelling in the last two games. We finally found some form. But I think just based on past history and what Kelly alluded to is during our ugly wins, Manchester City was just simply fucking steamrolling these other rivals, right? So like every time we had an opportunity in which we thought like, okay, maybe they just scored an early fucking 15-minute goal and you're like, okay, game's over, right, Chris? Like there's no point of hate watching at that point. So difficult role. If you want to emphasize a little bit on that, do you want to touch a little bit on the stat versus the eye test, or you want to roll into the Aston Villa and the free-flowing goal opportunity that we have?
I'll touch on that briefly. I do think that winning cures a lot of ills, a lot of anxieties, a lot of fears. As soon as we win one, we will have the benefit as a fan base of saying, yeah, this might be a really kind of down period of performances, even though we're getting results. But I've got faith that like, regardless of how we're playing, we're going to figure it out and turn it around and figure it out by the end of the year when it matters most. And I think that's what a club like City had the advantage of doing in terms of their fan base, is that they say, even right now, I mean, I know a lot of them are freaking out online. I'd imagine, though, there's a lot of them who are still saying, guys, we're only 6 points behind Arsenal. We were 8 points behind them 2 seasons ago when we caught them and went on that winning run. They might go on a run, but we're better. We know how to win. We know how to win when it matters. And we don't have that luxury because we haven't seen a generation that's been able to do that. We've seen a generation that's played well in most occasions in the run out, especially in 23, 24, where we just couldn't quite be perfect. We were just one step less than perfect, and it wasn't enough. And I think we have the specters of seasons past where we were nearly men haunting us, where City have the specters of winning it all 7 out of 10 years, with their back. So all we have to do is change that narrative. And we call this episode Busting Narratives, because I think this episode is going to be a lot about narratives. And one of the narratives we have to bust, and I think we're in the process of doing it, fingers crossed, is we are no longer the club that's a club of nearly men, run by nearly men who do everything right, who can, play a calendar year and have more points than anybody. You can have a 3-year run and have more points than anybody, but can't quite get over the line and get trophies, and replace that with, yeah, but we win when it matters and we collect the biggest trophies on offer, the Premier League. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying it, the Champions League, cups, etc., maybe even more than one in a season. And now we're the club that everybody's talking about in terms of, man, those guys know how to win when it matters. My team, if they're above Arsenal, are going to crumble because we know Arsenal is going to come through when it matters most. So we've got to replace the narrative we have right now with a new narrative. And I think we've got the group, we've got the manager, we've got all the pieces in place to do so.
I think what's interesting too is that some of the accomplishments of our rival clubs in different cups or competitions are probably coming home to roost a little bit. And I think it was so Arsenal Vision did a Schadenfreude podcast today, which I really like those, because they basically, when something good happens for Arsenal, something really good happens for Arsenal and something really bad happens for rivals, Elliot will pop on and just kind of like laugh and point for the first part of it, and then actually have like a more like, what does this mean for us type of thing. And he and Clive jumped on, because I think he was listening to it, and then jumped on during the stream. And they were talking, and it's like, Chelsea went and they went through the Club World Cup. City went deep into the Club World Cup. Yeah. And some of these players, even like Holland and stuff, they've accomplished things. They've like won stuff. They are enormous players for their national team. And so like, does Holland lose 5, knowing that he is the key player for Norway with a legitimate chance to make a run for the first time in generations in the World Cup? Is he going to, having already won like the Champions League and having, I mean, suppose he didn't win the Champions League, having won the league and won all these trophies, is he going to want to give it to the end of his rope? Is he going to hold off a little bit to make sure that he's not getting hurt? When he sees Gabriel pop his ACL in a bad tackle, is he going to want to go in there? Like, we're talking about at the top level of football, we're not talking about huge margins, and we're talking about individual fine margins and efforts and everything. I think our elite players that are still going to play roles for their club or for their countries this summer have very, very significant unfinished business with Arsenal. So Odegaard, Declan Rice, I mean, you just go through Saka. Like, there's a lot of they have been through this for years with us, and they know things are unfinished here. I think they're going to see this as an opportunity to give everything. And I would lie detector test gun to their head. I think that there are players within this team that would trade being a significant part of a World Cup with winning the league championship in the Premier League this year, because they have unfinished business here. And I don't know that that's the case with some of our rival clubs. Our guys on Liverpool, when they're watching their other teammates drop like flies, are they going to give up their positions? Are players going to start professionally hedging if we're 6 points clear, 8 points clear, as injuries build up and everything? Is there going to be some self-protectionism that happens here that's like, okay, well, this is not the time for me to make that extra sprint or go into that extra tackle or lay my body on the line for that? And maybe that's oversimplifying, and maybe that's not giving professional elite athletes the credit that they deserve. But the fact that we haven't done it and some of our other direct competitors have done those things very recently, and the World Cup is here, and they've did long cup runs, and they did the Club World Cup. There's a lot of things that are kind of coming to a head where it's like, of all the clubs, all the teams that are really good are in bad shape because of the amount of matches they play and the amount of competitions. With us getting players back now and having to leave like high-end 6-figure per week players out of uniform and not dressing for league matches, are we in the best possible position? All the teams have the least bad situation. And in the fact that we are the least rundown with the most available options, like, is it, like I said, is this the year that the steady, very good, very responsible, very deep team, is it set up for us to be the advantage rather than having the elite talismanic superstar, or the having maybe outside of Declan Rice and our central defenders, maybe like it's okay that we don't have any of the best attackers in football? Is it, or the best whatever in football? Is it okay for that to be a thing? Can we win like that this year because of A, B, and C?
Especially, it's definitely going to be a collective thing, and I want to circle back to this comment that David says: is once we start winning, it will be a dynasty. You really kind of do feel it that way, right? Because Liverpool had a few years prior to not winning the Champions League, not winning the league for a little bit, and I think that Jurgen Klopp's run started with a League Cup, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the first titles that he won with Liverpool, and I know that that cup just in general divides opinions, because a lot of people are like, that's not a big trophy, but the idea and the concept of winning a trophy, kind of the whole winning breeds winning mentality, is kind of one that I've always hopped on. I said it way in the past, in which when we purchased Declan Rice, and I think Manchester City purchased Haaland, we're like, Haaland is like the most unromantic way of watching sport. I don't know how else to describe it right now. Like Declan Rice, potentially, the rumors were like Manchester City wanted him or whatever, and he ended up at Arsenal, and he speaks about wanting to win about the club. We had Saliba that openly was asked about Real Madrid, if I'm not mistaken, and he said, I don't want to leave. And he literally said, I haven't won anything. Yeah. So even to the credit for, to even in his eyes, he's like, no, FA Cup is not enough.
Yeah.
He was here, if I'm not mistaken. He was like, that's not enough. He wants to be part of the history of the club that turns around that Champions League that has never happened, the league that hasn't happened for over 2 decades. And there's something romantic about it, so to say. So like, I'm all on board. It's a lovely thing. We're busting narratives as the state we titled the pod, but they're close, and I think there's something to it. It's difficult, right? Because there's no data, there's no stats in which we could judge a player, player's emotions, so to say.
Yeah.
But you kind of sense it, and in the past, I will say, I think I've told you guys this in the past. With 2-3 months left in the league, I would tell you guys, there's something in me that just makes me feel that this team already admitted that they can't win the league.
Yeah,
I've been pretty firm that I believe this season is going to be the season, and we'll see how this plays out. But I do generally believe that there's a certain maturity about the squad, and I feel like they're ready. I don't know how else to say it. I feel like they're ready is my best way of describing that. So
they have come painfully close a lot, and I think that one thing that's been unique about the recruitment for what Arsenal have done is that they've for their pillar players that we've always kind of talked about how they seem to be character. It seemed to be a really when Arteta got in there, he had to fuck off a bunch of like low character like paycheck chasers and divas, and that was a very painful and expensive part of his first couple seasons here. And KSE, to their credit, were pretty linked up in that, and like again, like paid shitty players, not even shitty players, but paid shitty people to go away. And like it seems part of our key recruitment criteria has been around. I mean, it's not the entire consideration, obviously, but a part of the consideration has at least been character and fit and like culture. And so they have these like big personalities that are very high character, like national team captains, like not bridging the gap between Arsene Wenger's like spoiled children and his like church mice that he used to have. He'd either have the spoiled kids that would be able to do whatever they wanted, or people who were just yes or no, sir. Like Declan Rice is not a yes or no, sir edge. Like he is like an immense leader who's high character. So is Odegaard, and so is Gabriel, and like. And when you have that, you can fold in other more spiky personalities, and everybody talks about like David Raya is going to be a manager when he's done. Like I think that there's like between like they've really very very rarely in football do you have a manager be an ownership deferring to a manager and the manager being able to impart the type of culture that they've tried to do. And like remember. He took pelters for that, like the fucking light bulb thing and the heart, like the drawing and everything. Like he was a meme doing this, but the problem is like you don't know how that's going to respond. And if you're like, it's almost like a college football thing in the U.S., like the culture setter. Like it doesn't matter if you're corny. It needs to. The point of all that stuff is to get people like spiritually connected towards a common goal. And very very talented people have largely, like a lot of times, have affected culture, and the culture has run through them. They've been very coddled. So to be able to parse through the players that want to come to your club, you can afford, are in positions of need and have the talent that you required, and to be able to extract the type of personal connection from them, to do that is a real kind of an art and a science. And I think that they have the really big pillars there, but also again, like Jurrien Timber, like you go through and all these guys are these like super high character guys. And then you can start the Kasaka and like these, like everybody loves all these people and they work hard and it's all this work ethic. Then you can start folding in Trossard and Madueke and like all these other guys because they conform to culture, because they want to win. And so even people who have been a little bit fussy, and I still think like Trossard is still a fussy guy, but like even with that, like how many times have you ever heard of a club giving a player a raise without an extension? They just gave Trossard more money this offseason, and they got absolutely slammed for it, probably with us too. If you went back, it's like, what the fuck are we paying him more? He should at least give us another year. And he's having the best year of his career at 31 because he's happy. Like I think that there's some social intelligence that's woven into how we do things as a club right now that is not something that you can observe. But I think we'll probably know post hoc more. We will hear, hopefully everything stays together to a degree that we can win at least one or two of the things that we want to win over this thing. This is a finite time. This time will end at some point. Like this cohort of Arsenal with these main players will end at some point, and they'll have to refresh anew. Like that's just part of football. That's a part of a type of sport where players generally are out of their prime by the time they're 29 or 30. That's how it goes. And we're in the kind of meat of like the 3 or 4 years where we're going to win stuff. We're like a year or two into like the 3 or 4 year window where you really are going to peak, right? I think we're going to hear post hoc after players retire stories of like like good positive culture stories and like really like moments that are going to touch us in a very special way when we hear about this group. And I think a lot of that has just come from right manager, right place, right time, with given the right power by, again, the upside of having owners that don't involve themselves very much is if you put the right people, if you put the wrong people in power, you fucking stink and it all starts burning down like it was before. If you put the perfect people in power and give them the authority and the latitude and the decision-making autonomy to be able to bring in the type of people and players they want, to give them the space to fail and spread that out, you can really make something special. But it just doesn't happen in billion-pound sports entities because it can go so wrong so easily if you do that. And again, my hope is that this is going to be one of those times where we reflect back again 5, 10, 15 years ago and say, God, that was such a beautiful time to be an Arsenal fan. And not only doing it, like Christian, you've talked about, like Mike and I even talked about in this podcast, like, I don't give a fuck if we were doing it the right way. Like, give me the juice, like whatever, like where's the oil money when things are really bad. And you've been pretty firm about like, there's an Arsenal way, there's a class way, there's a right way to do things. And we want to do it the right way. And I mean, this feels like as far as bloodthirsty international sport goes, like this feels like relatively close to the right way to do things at like a top 5 club in the world level, to the extent that that's even possible. I don't know.
We've got 0 charges to my knowledge against us of financial impropriety, whereas the teams that have won it recently outside of Liverpool have amassed almost 200 between them. So I'd say if you're not breaking the rules, if you're not getting charged by the FA, if you haven't paid off refs, if you haven't done X, Y, and Z, to my knowledge, you haven't done any of those things, and you win whatever there is to win. I think the winning's sweeter, honestly. If you're a cycling fan and you were rooting for Lance Armstrong all those years, and then you found out that he was doping, do you feel great about being a fan of his? Do you feel like any of his wins were legitimate? You don't.
You don't see a lot of Livestrong bracelets anymore, do you?
No, you don't. No, they're all gone. Just like I hope, when City get charged, which will never happen, and when Chelsea get, found guilty, which will likely never happen, at least not to any sort of significant degree, that we see fewer and fewer, dickheads online from either of those fan bases that spout off and do all the bullshit things that they do constantly online without any shame, mind you. I don't know. I don't know. That's just not me. I can't be that guy that cheers that on and feels good about it. And I want to feel good about what I'm cheering on when I'm a fan. And if Arsenal were to sell out to an oil club, if they were to do it in a way that amassed all sorts of unwanted attention, charges, where the conversation around the club was more in the courtroom and less on the pitch.
Yeah,
it's not my thing, man. That's not what I signed up to be a football fan for. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that while we have long suffered, once we achieve glory on the football pitch, it's going to be that much sweeter, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when you're in the midst of the downside of that, of not being cheaters and dopers, it's hard because you're looking around you. It's like everybody else is cheating and doping. Like, let's just fall in line because we could maybe win some stuff. Like, look at how close we are doing it again. And all of this is, before anybody pipes into, this is all like relative to international sport. Like, I understand that like the Cronkies are like, I mean, Walmart billionaires, right? Like, we have like oodles of like generational wealth that's created these billions. Like, they own a bunch of sports franchises. Like, we are hardly this is not like Boda Glimt, like making a run of the Champions League. Like, this is a cosmopolitan, a historically elite, affluent club in London, one of the cultural and financial meccas of the world. Multiple meccas is a stupid analogy. Sorry, but we're a beer and a half in. Like, there's only one mecca, but like being in this position is all relative to the scope of unfathomable wealth and power and reach that we see in international football. But within that prison, within that setup, I think that truly Arsenal is a culture, a club of culture and reputation and standing that is unique. And I think that's a story that we have struggled to express with our play on the pitch, with our behavior off the pitch, and with our recruitment and our players. And it feels really nice when those players go through it feels like when we go and send our prestige 11, our primary first 11 on the pitch, it feels like these are Arsenal players. These are Arsenal men. Like Socrates is not an Arsenal man, right? Myron Shamak is not an Arsenal player. Like some of these goofs that have stumbled through, like even like somebody who Aubameyang, who I have a lot of time for, is a hired gun. He's a mercenary, not an Arsenal man. Like,
yeah,
when you go through, like, you will remember Declan Rice's free kicks when you're old, when you're aged. like Declan, you will remember Declan Rice. You will be in the same way that the oldsters are sad when Arsenal players of the 60s and 70s pass away and well into old age. When we hear, I mean, Declan Rice is younger than me, so I'll probably be dead before he is, frankly. But like, when people younger than me hear that Declan Rice has passed on of old age after living the greatest life ever at 90 years old, they will be truly sad because they'll remember the things that they made him feel, right? And that's kind of what you want. That's the layer to the success that you want to have. And maybe that's something that's can only exist in something like football, where these clubs have existed for 120, 130, 140, 150 years, right? And you feel, and maybe that's what draws us to this club and this type of sport, because in American sports, like my football team in Minnesota's like now a super old state here. Like it was built with 1960s. So they've been around for 65 years or whatever. And that feels like a long time. That's like not even the person's lifespan. And to be able to, and largely the Minnesota Vikings relevance is restricted to the upper Midwest of the United States and some pockets throughout the world. That's just a vague rooting interest, right? But to have a club that spans the entire planet, like it means something more when you can, again, like just now to put some into frame for people. We have 42 people watching this, right? I mean, we span this podcast who have been hosts and pundits here that span the entire width of the nation. Like Mike lives in California. Christian and I both live in the Midwest. We're in the same kind of time zone, but hundreds of miles away from each other. And then Sebi, who's no longer on the podcast, was in New York. So we literally span the entire country, like 4 time zones. We would go and do this. And like that span is like the equivalent of what is that the geographical equivalent of, Christian? Like going from fucking Portugal to
Moscow.
Basically.
It's nearly the whole of Russia, I believe. Yeah.
It's like going across there, and that's the geographical boundaries. And again, it's a little bit different because we share a language and culture largely, but like, God, again, I'm getting really, really deep into the bag already, and we're like 40 minutes in. Like if we were to do the things that we want to do, this is why it means more to do it. And maybe it means even more because it's been so long since we've done it, and we've never done the other thing. And again, like, we should probably get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty. This is getting very, very meta really quickly, specifically because of me, but like,
I got you covered.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. But I think that's why you kind of do that thing where you dare to look at the 12 games ahead and you go, holy shit, what if we're there then? Like, what happens then? I don't know.
Which we as fans have the luxury of doing. Fortunately, unfortunately, the players and the manager do not. They have to look at it one game at a time, as Arteta always says. So, I don't know. Do we have the more fun job? You be the judge.
Definitely, we get to overreact, underreact, banter, cry, be overreactive. We could lose the league after one draw, and then and then win it the next for because we go on a run of four games in a row. I think Kelly, Chris, one of you guys mentioned this in the past, in which you were saying that like these highs and lows, sometimes us fans are living it more than the actual players, in which we are living with the quote unquote trauma, with a lack of better words, of having finished second for 3 years in a row. So for us to fall in second, like the sky is falling. And within the locker room, they're probably like, okay, let's lock in. What did we do wrong? We're going to course correct, right? So it might potentially haunt the supporters more than it haunts the players. So just win, baby, as Al Davis once said. So hopefully 6 points clear right now, 18 games to go, still a lot of fucking time to go. We'll see how the next few games play out. So we're not singing hooray, hooray right now, but things are looking really good. Players are coming back. Gabriel Jesus is already starting to make an impact. A few minutes that he's playing. And, Kai Havertz is right around the corner. We are going to get to the Gyokeres thing a little bit because I feel like it's impossible. But, let's as an icebreaker, just to joke around a little bit, Chris, my question to you is, if it was cold, would you wait to shake my hand after a bat? Let's talk about Unai Emery just for a little bit. Look, first and foremost, congratulations to Unai Emery. I've always said that he does better in a hard-working industrial type of club versus a bigger club with, I don't know if egos is the right word, but I do think that when you hit certain levels in sports and just certain levels in various places in life, you have to be managed a certain way. And then with Unai Emery, it's more of a, industrial work hard type of thing. It's kind of like a different manner in which he delivers the monologues. I would assume that he motivates players in certain ways. So shout out to Aston Villa, who went through 8 or 11 games. I couldn't remember. 11. It was more than I just remember. It was more than 10 because Aston Villa's Twitter account posted that United lad would have been able to have 2 haircuts, which is fucking brilliant on their end. But we did get the better of them. So let's have some fun at the expense of Emi Martinez and at the expense of Unai Emery. But Chris, let's echo Unai Emery. You know what? Sometimes I feel like there's more bad blood than I realize. Like I kind of feel like he might be potentially thinking like, hey, the club didn't give me the opportunity. Because like these lately, the games versus Aston Villa when he's in charge, they're pretty crazy, Chris. Like I feel like they're like, mini derbies, if you will. And he came out after the game, claimed that Mikel Arteta, he claimed that he was waiting for Mikel Arteta, right? And Mikel Arteta he was too busy celebrating with his own staff to go over. And the camera angle was absolutely amazing because like you could see Arteta walking over there, gives like a little look, and it was kind of like, oh fucking well, and he just went on celebrating. But dude, he's live on camera, 4K, in which like he did not wait for a split second. He comes out on the post interview and he's like, hey, it was too cold, I couldn't wait. But my routine is always to go shake the rival manager's hand and then go talk to my staff. Are you shocked at all of how petty? I'm going to use the word petty to be quite frank. He didn't do it this fucking game when he won. Are you surprised at all of how petty he is, or do you think it's just like the bad taste in his mouth is justified that he feels like they didn't give him the opportunity at the Arsenal?
I don't know if he feels he didn't get a shot. I think if he is a guy that can look in the mirror and be pretty honest about who he is and what he did, that while, the environment within which he was managing Arsenal wasn't ideal, and that we were coming off a generational manager, that we had a lot of turnover at an executive level, that we didn't have the structure we have in place now that is designed to get elite results from the club, that we had, sporting directors that were, cozying up to agents that were bringing in players that maybe didn't belong here. There was a lot of things that wasn't quite right during the Emery era that was happening around him. But I think if anything, he feels a chip on his shoulder to want to prove something, that maybe he is a better manager than maybe Arsenal as a club, the fans, maybe the players that were there at the time would see him as better than maybe we actually do. I think that's the most he probably thinks about it, if he thinks about it at all. And so I think that's why you get a little bit of an extra, there's a little bit of extra needle. Maybe there's a bit more of an extra focus that Aston Villa brings to the games against us that maybe you don't see against other opposition that's, similar in quality to Arsenal in terms of status and, place in the table, etc. In terms of his excuse and what he said after the non-handshake, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all, because there's 19 other managers that we play against year in and year out that Arteta has played. If we were to add up all the different managers that Arteta has faced as a manager of Arsenal, it's probably with all the sackings and hirings and firings, probably nearing 50, 40, 50.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never had a problem with anybody. He's never had a manager refuse to shake his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He's never had a manager say, I didn't shake his hand because I was too cold.
Mm-hmm.
He's never had he might have had a beef with a manager. He might have had an argument. I remember him and Klopp used to go at it from time to time on the sidelines, but they always shook hands afterwards.
Remember the Tuchel Conte one? I was
They did the do-si-do. That was awesome. But we've never had a manager that said, oh, I waited around for him and I was too cold, so I decided not to shake hands. Now, both managers in their post-match interviews said there was nothing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to believe, and I didn't see, Arteta overreact when he didn't see that Emery was there.
He had a little bit of the Travolta Pulp Fiction meme of the walking in there kind of doing this, and then just went, okay.
Yeah. And then Berto basically told him he's gone. Just go celebrate, go shake hands, go clap the fans. But I think Emery was frustrated. I think Emery knew that was a big opportunity. I mean, they were going to be joint first if they won that game.
Mm-hmm.
They would have been tied with us at the top of the Premier League. And I think the disappointment of him not getting a result in that game, I think, weighed on him. And I think he didn't want to be out there any longer than he had to be because I think he was pissed.
Yeah.
And even if it meant 3 to 4 to 5 seconds that he had to have waited for Arteta to come over was too much. And I wish he would have just been honest about it. I wish he would have said, you know what, in the heat of the moment, I was frustrated that we didn't get the win. I should have stood around and shook his hand, and I didn't. Every other manager does this with Arteta, and Arteta does the exact same thing after every win. He hugs his coaching staff for about 4 to 5 seconds, and then he comes over and shakes the manager's hand. Look at what he did with Areola. They're good friends. Yeah. They're both Basque guys. Same thing as Emery. He's Basque region. They share a common nationality, a common language, a common understanding of how football works. Areola basically goes through like a crowd of people as Arteta is trying to diffuse a situation between one of his assistant managers, and I'm guessing he had a beef with somebody on the Bournemouth sideline, and he goes over there and shakes his hand and gives him a hug. Did that look like a guy who had a problem with what Arteta did? He had zero problem with it. He said nothing about it in the post-match interview. And so all this hubbub online about Aston Villa fans saying, oh, Arteta's a bitch because he doesn't, he always celebrates with his team first. And, he's a poor sport and he's this, that, and the other thing. And they threw all sorts of insults at Arteta. I need to look in the mirror because A, both managers made no big deal about it. And B, this is just your latest, headline that you want to put out into the world for a reason that supports a reason why you want to hate on Arsenal and hate on Arteta. And it just seems so petty. And it's like they're inventing reasons to be pissed off and upset because we're good and they're not. That's my
spin. It's spin. And I think a lot of this too is that, and this is not even the first time this observation is made on this podcast, and it's certainly not the first one in the Arsenal kind of analysis Twitter fan media sphere. But the thing that's frustrating about Arsenal being good is that when you have more money than God and you're cheats, it's very easy to compartmentalize your failure. If you lose to City, it's like, well, fucking A, like they're obviously cheating. They just go and pay people under the table. This we all know, like with Chelsea too. It's like we all know this is a fucking scam. Like it's easier to legitimately explain. It's a lot harder when Liverpool or Arsenal are good because that's something that is attainable through competence and consistency and good coaching and good players. But it's something that can be accomplished by not anybody, obviously, because we're talking about, again, within the micro top 10 clubs and the richest clubs in the world stuff. But when you're PSG and City, it's very easy to just hand wave away accomplishment and consistent high level performance because they're fucking cheaters. They're injecting a ton of money. They have by far the best, like even like Bayern Munich in Germany, like nobody fucking cares about them really outside of Bayern Munich that much. It's great when they beat them, but like nobody actually expects to compete with them because they're spend twice as much money as everybody else. And they make moves like City are going to make to pull Semenyo out of Bournemouth, literally not because they want him or need him, just to cripple a rival's chance of getting him. Now, you could probably argue that we did it with Eze, actually, with Spurs and other teams, that we didn't actually need Eze. We're not actually using him a ton. We just could afford him. We bought him on a spite to use him when we want to use him, which is like, it is what it is. But I think that's what Aston Villa sees it. An Aston Villa fan and somebody like Emery would see Arsenal as, if they can win the league, we can do it too, because it means they beat Chelsea and they beat City. And they overcame, and Manchester United are still clowns. So they are not the richest club in England. And they're not one of the top 2 richest clubs in England. And they still found a way to do it. We can compete with that against Villa's, whatever, like the 5th or 6th richest club in England. Right? And so I think it hurts more to lose that. And for their fans, it hurts more to lose to Arsenal by a 3-1 margin. And we kind of paddle them when they're that close, because it's the old little brother's getting too close and he's getting some body shots. You just extend your arm and you hold them by the head. And no matter how much they swing and huff and puff, they can't reach you. And then you just kind of knock them on the head and win. And then that's it. That's a frustrating thing to lose to, and a frustrating way to lose. And again, you underscore that with Emery being a manager here and blah, blah, blah. But I think a lot of times too, it's interesting because we view it through the online prism, and there's so many like deeply unserious people that are online that are just making shit up either for attention, or they're legitimately stupid, or they are 16 years old and they don't actually know what they're talking about past the last 18 months. It's interesting during the winter break is that you and I, Chris, get kind of roped into some of this bullshit. But it'd be interesting to actually be able to speak to like an actual, like, honest to God Aston Villa fan and see what they think about that. And not like, yeah, man, Morgan Rogers is my favorite player of all time, who's like 23 years old.
This is the disadvantage of living in the States, where we all do, in case people couldn't tell.
One-time proximity is an issue as for your fandom, I think.
Well, yeah, and I think there's pluses and minuses to it, right? Like, if you've got a London derby, if you got a North London derby, if you've quote unquote bottled it for 3 years, and you've got to listen to that bullshit in real life every day you go to work, or every day you go to school, or when you're at your in-laws' house, or you have to hang out with your mates, and they're all rival fans. They're all rival fans. You can't just like close your computer or turn off your Twitter, or decide you're going to deactivate for a while, or take a social media vacation. Like, we have that luxury when it's going bad, but we also get a very distinct worldview of what a fandom looks like, because the vast majority of our fandom, of our interaction with rivals, comes through social media, which we all know is, as you so rightfully pointed out, Kelly, is fraught with motivations other than fandom coming to the fore. It's making money. It's seeking attention. It's, you're 16 and you don't know any better. And it's hard to separate what's a true fan's reflection. I know that, like, there is no true fan's reflection, because a true fan's reflection is a myriad of reflections, and that there isn't just one homogenous fan, but it's made up of a collection of a lot of different perspectives. But, what is somebody who lives in Birmingham, who's a season ticket holder, who goes to Aston Villa games all the time, what do they think, right? Versus what is the faceless, nameless person who's an Aston Villa fan, who claims to live in the UK, but we have no idea where, and we have no idea how old he is, going off on a tangent about how, Emery is the best manager ever to live, and Arteta is the worst person ever to live, and he's, he should, his gravesite should be right next to Hitler's. Like, it's just, it's hard to pick the bones out of what's real and what's not, what's just social media and what's not, when you're living over here. And that's the downside of being a fan, where you're supporting a team that's 4,000 miles away, or in the case of Mike, 6,000 miles away. I think there's pluses and minuses to it. So luckily, all of us know true Arsenal fans, and I don't mean that to be derogatory or pejorative. What I do mean is that I think we all interact with and know people, either personally or at least on social media, that are at least people who go to games consistently at the Emirates. And I think we at least get a perspective of what a true match-going fan looks and sounds like. And again, there's probably differences between those folks, but you at least are getting the kind of unvarnished, unfiltered perspective of someone who actually watches them day in and day out, week in and week out, and not just someone who lives in, another continent that is just farming interactions for engagement or money otherwise.
No, it's all fair points. I do think you have a really valid point in which like we also know Arsenal supporters that like live in England, and we get to interact with them on a personal level outside of Twitter. So you get to have a better idea of what's going on. But to your point, Chris, even the local supporters in Aston Villa, like that West Ham guy, right? What we were joking around because his tweet about what was it? I'm going to get pelters for this. You guys are going to think I'm joking, but this team is better without Declan Rice. Something like that. And like that tweet keeps on getting pulled up, right? Every single time Declan Rice does something good, right? So
Yeah.
My goodness, I hope he's collecting money on that tweet, because I mean that thing is getting some interactions. But
for the record though, somebody snapshotted like the degeneration of his reactions that over the last like 2 years, and he's like he gets less severe, and he's like, I hope the last one's like, I really hope they take it easy.
The last one was okay. I got carried away. Take it easy on me. Like, he wasn't even fighting it anymore. He just accepted it. Like, okay, guys, my bad. But to Chris's point, I generally feel I if you told me he went out telling his mates that at school or at work, wherever the hell, whatever age gap he is, I don't think he did that in real life, Chris. I do think that was a tweet meant to be like, fuck it. Aston Villa, I'm sorry, West Ham must have won 4 games or something. And then, like, you know what? We're substantially better. Like, for me, it's too difficult for me to be able to like bridge the gap that I'm like, I read certain comments online and my brain goes to, there's no fucking way that's rooted in like reality. It's kind of like when the Manchester City supporters do the whole underdog thing. Like, oh my God, what are we going to do with these injuries? I think we know what you're going to do. Last year, around this time in January, you had injuries and you just went to spend 300 million. I think that's what you're going to do this January. Call me fucking crazy. Hey, they're running on a budget. Let's leave it at 200 million. But I really feel like that's what they're going to do. Like, so yes, they lost a few defenders, but this whole woe is me type of thing that they do, I think it's mainly because we're interacting with people online. So, difficult to gauge, to say the very least. But
I mean, you mentioned Declan Rice earlier. Case in point, some dude named the Sky Blues at Man City 9320. Shout out if you have any chance of remotely hearing this, which I'm sure you don't. Mm-hmm. He posts some sort of inane compilation of some guy named Ibrahim Maza. I'm sure you've heard of him before, Kelly. You haven't. Great. So, no. And he says, I'm so tired of the overhype of English players, man. I swear, Ibrahim Maza is just 19 years old and already better than Declan Rice. I dare Arsenal fans to come up with a compilation like this for Rice. And I'm just like, dude, you've got to be 13 and you're on like winter break. He's from the United States. We know this now. Thank you, Elon, because we can just click someone's a button and we can find out where people are posting from.
That is absolutely life changing.
Next one up for me is I want it, like when you click on the profile, I want to be able to see the flag. I want to see it easier. That's all I'm saying. Just make it easier.
I should have to click. It should just.
Mikey, most Americans don't know what any flags are, by the way. So like that's you're more of a citizen of the world than you have like something like if you stop somebody on the street and show them the Japanese flag, I swear to God, in a major city, like 1 out of every 5 people will be able to tell you what that flag is for. And I'm not joking at all.
That's like.
I hate that's probably true, Kelly, but you're absolutely so.
Dude,
this is where we're getting.
Yeah.
Go for it. Go.
If you show them that there is no distinction between like the Ecuadorian flag, the Colombian flag, anything that's like it's like that's Mexican colors, right? Like that's what would be your response.
Absolutely love that. I would say that's where me getting educated a little bit outside of the country came in clutch for me. I got to I was taught, believe this or not, that there's other countries with flags. So I got to learn about that at an early age.
Yes. No, for the record, Ibrahim Mazda also 20 years old already. Can we just so he's 5 years older than Max Dowman. For the record, just to kind of quantify that. And I think he has played 12 times for Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah, and he's Algerian, I think.
Berlin. He's German, but he plays for Algeria.
Yeah.
And he's born in Berlin and educated in Berlin and and played for Hertha's academy and everything. So he's he's just a guy. Like, how many of these just a guys? And again, I don't really watch the Bundesliga as much anymore. But how many of these guys are we going to pull out of the Bundesliga and have them just not be good when they play against actual players? Like, how many times are we doing that?
Well, he's showing comps. Half the comps he's showing is from the AFCON. I'm like, come on, dude. Like,
Christ, no.
And Bundesliga is certainly not the Premier League either. Come on, bro. Be serious. They didn't even play the same damn position.
He's a forward. He's listed as a forward.
I know. He sounds like he's primed to get a 7-year contract from Chelsea.
Yeah, next year,
40 million. If I'm gathering what I'm gathering correctly,
and then get loaned out to Strasbourg for the rest of his life. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah, they're going to negotiate with Chelsea for that one.
Here's another one though. And I posted this in our thing, or our group chat. Declan Rice is one of the best players in the world right now, right? He's top 3 to 4. Are we finally coming? I will know.
I think you could say that without being hyperbolic, in my opinion.
No, which is great. I think he is the best Arsenal player we've had in a very long time, as far as relative to world. And so here's what I would say. I think Saliba and Gabriel are 2 of the best center backs in the world. But I think when you place a position as specialized as center back, where you Gabriel aside, who scores goals, but it's kind of a specialty position. I think usually when they consider best players in the world, it's almost always a midfielder or an attacker. Always. That's who the Ballon d'Or pool is, besides Cannavaro that 1 year. And I think that's because Italy won the World Cup also, and I think maybe Juve won the Champions League too. But that was a one-off, and a lot of times those players like Rodri won because there was an absence of a clear attacker that could win it, and so they kind of win it because there's no 50-goal attacker that wins stuff. And even last year, I think it's pretty clear that Ousmane Dembele was not the best player in the world, but PSG won the Champions League and won the domestic league and won their domestic cup, and he scored a lot of goals playing as a kind of a false 9 hybrid forward, and he had a lot of output. So it's you were the most effective player, the most influential player on the best team in the world, so here you get to win this. I don't know, man. There's not a lot of players who do the things that he does at all, both ways. I think it helps that he is English, and I think a lot of the power in football is no longer in Spain and Italy. Definitely not in Italy, but not in Spain anymore. It's in England, and so I think that he will have some smoke if he does well at the World Cup and Arsenal win one of the 2 big prizes, and he is really good and stays fit the entire year. I think there is going to be he's going to be there in a tuxedo, I think, at the end right now, because that guy is a fucking maniac. He's the best player in England right now, and it's he looks like he's playing at another gear than everybody else in these matches, both ways, offensively, defensively, ball winning. There's very few outcomes in the range that I thought that we paid $105 million for this guy that it would be okay, he's not just well worth, but it feels like we ripped West Ham off big time. That is one of the best players in the world, and he's 26, so he's literally in the middle of his prime right now too. It's fucking crazy to watch that. When is the last was Van Persie that last year before he went to United? Is that the last player Arsenal had that's been this good? Is what
I was going to say. I thought about Van Persie, but after him, I was going to say Sanchez for the first 2-3 years. So I literally
big Alexis here. I think that's a good show.
I was thinking Alexis, then Declan Rice, as far as unquestionably elite is how I'm going to describe it. That's kind of my point of view on that one. Just
Agreed.
on the Aston Villa game, Debu Emiliano Martinez being a dickhead.
Fuck him.
Warming up at the beginning of the game, in the middle, disturbing people that just needed to work for the club, just being an absolute fucking prick. Obviously, we don't know what the supporters were telling him, But if it was just banter, if it was just telling him to like fuck off or wank or
yeah.
and he had the reaction because he was absolutely losing his fucking head. Abreu kind of mentioned him like an ex girlfriend or an ex boyfriend that just can't let go of their past partner. He's just very deeply hurt about the Arsenal. He just can't get over it. So that's an interesting one too. So let's talk about the goals a little bit, just because you talk about Declan Rice. Obviously, you know what I was going to say. He scored 2, but I'm thinking about the Bournemouth game right now. Let's talk Gabriel Jesus in his current form. He's playing a few more minutes nowadays. He still hasn't started, right, Chris? I'm not crazy. He didn't start versus Palace.
No, he's
He
always
did not start versus
been
Palace.
filling in. He's not ready for starter minutes. I'm guessing.
That's what I'm guessing. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a turn to negative town here, there, Chris. There's a few players that aren't starting recently. Eze, which you could maybe so Eze as a new player, along with Madueke, who's getting substantially less minutes, you can make an argument that they're learning the system, they're trying to get bedded in, and maybe to an extent they're almost protected that there's healthy players in those positions that could play, and allows them the freedom to get up to speed, if you will. For me, in my opinion, Waneri, it's looking very dim. Not certain that game versus Palace. I as I've joked around in the past, being very hyperbolic, saying Prime Messi doesn't get into Mikel Arteta's starting 11. I do think it's one of those things in which he's a very offensive heavy player. He doesn't track back a whole lot, and potentially we haven't been in a whole lot of game states. One thing, Tom Canton, he brought this up, and it kind of made sense, in which if Arsenal have so many games in which they're leading 1-0, Mikel Arteta is not going to burn a sub in a player like Waneri. Maybe if we're ever in a situation where we're up 4-0, right? We're like clear, or some easy layup win
with like 2 minutes to go, totally.
Or even in a position where we're losing or drawn 1-1 and he's going for it, I think Ethan Waneri might potentially have more opportunity. But we spoke at the beginning of the podcast, which we had like 4 or 5 games in which like it was 1 goal win, right, prior to these last 2. I just don't think that works well for Waneri. Now, I don't know. I'm being pessimistic, but realistically, just the absolute lack of minutes, I think he must be a little bit disheartened as well, because he did sign the contract. I assume the contract's signature came with some type of talk about improved minutes in some way, shape, or form. And then shortly after that, they purchased, Eberechi Eze, and that must have been like a dagger in his freaking heart. So generally think he's going to be loaned out at the very least in January. That is my expectation for the well-being of him and his career, and just what's fair is what I'm going to say to the human being. So but Gabriel Jesus, la remontada brasileña, for Gabriel when he's back. Here's my argument as to why I hope he starts starting games pretty soon. And this is going into a negative way of viewing Victor Gyokeres. And I'm struggling to justify it, Chris. So I'm seeing a lot of like debate online, and for the most part, the people that are like super pro play Victor, they're giving me the whole, you're so dumb that you don't see the magnet that is Victor Gyokeres, that he's attracting so much players to him, that is creating so much. He's creating space, where I started jokingly saying XSC, or
yeah.
CS, sorry, expected space created.
Yeah,
I started joking around. I'm not buying into it, Chris. And I'm not buying into it. And I know that you could easily point at the stat that we've only had a handful, stop it, Kelly, handful of players in which they've scored 20 plus goals. And that only Haaland, for, however amount of years, arrived to this English Premier League and scored 20 goals. A few things here. I'm not expecting him to score 20 goals, but I'm expecting him to be slightly more involved. And my bar was like set at like 10 or 15. He could still score that, but I do believe that his minutes are going to be drastically reduced with the inclusion of Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus. So having played nearly 16 games starting, I believe, 14, 16 games starting, playing the lion's share of the minutes, I think I saw a stat. It was like 1,400 out of 1,600 minutes. 5 goals a very long time ago. And it frustrates the holy shit out of me with the lack of inclusion within the squad, Chris. So here's my biggest argument against the whole he creates space. Mikel Merino, when he starts as forward, he's heavily involved in everything moving forward. Gabriel Jesus is heavily involved in everything moving forward. Kai Havertz, when he played, was heavily involved in moving forward. And yet when we get to Gabriel, to Victor Gyokeres, the only positive thing that supporters got to say about him, that those who like are desperate to like defend him and just say, give him time, or not he helps in build up, not he passes, not he missed a shot. No, it's he attracts defenders. And Chris, tell me you would not be taking the ever living piss out of United fans if they were saying, you guys don't understand, Šeško doesn't need goals. He's attracting defenders and creating space for others to attack. I just feel like any rational Arsenal supporter would be taking the absolute piss out of any other rival supporter for making a claim that a 60, 70 million player is there to, quote, distract defenders. Like, literally, I feel like you could put, anybody in the box and it's going to warrant a body to be near him to defend him. So I'm not saying losing hope, because I feel like that's saying there's no way back. But I'm going to say that I am incredibly underwhelmed with what I've seen thus far.
Yeah.
So where are you on the Gyokeres thing, man?
I'm going to start by talking as if I'm going to defend him, and I'm really not. Because but what I wanted, because you guys have been in back channels. You guys have even heard me on this podcast.
I thought you were going to do the whole rope-a-dope, Chris, where you made me think you were on my side and then boom, just debate me.
Pull the rug out from underneath you. Absolutely. But you guys heard it. I've never been excited about Gyokeres. And I think we have to talk about how we as Arsenal fans, and probably the modern football fan, has been, especially in the Premier League, has been conditioned to watch the number 9 role or position as a false 9 player. I mean, it started with what's his face at Liverpool, who did it really well, the Brazilian, and then Firmino. Thank you. I had a brain fart there, but ever since then, it feels like the best center forwards in the league have been the type that is kind of all action, does everything, drops deep, holds up, can pass really well, can dribble, gets a few shots, but his primary role is not shooting and scoring. And what we did this summer is said, we absolutely need a number 9 of some ilk, right? We've got Jesus, who none of us thought would be probably playing games again in an Arsenal shirt, or if he did, it'd be in garbage time or in cups. So I think we're getting Jesus back, maybe even slightly better than we all expected, and certainly playing more than I think most of us expected. But we also haven't seen Havertz play a meaningful game in 12 months. So without a center forward, another center forward at the club, you're looking at Mikel Merino for, every game for 5 months, and that's just not sustainable. A, he's not a number 9, even though he plays it quite well. But B, we need him to play some other roles in midfield in addition, and therefore you can't just roll him out there as number 9 every game. So what we did was we rolled the dice, right? And we saw, hey, we've got Benjamin Šeško, who, I've said on this pod would be someone I'd be interested in, who, joke's on me, has been terrible at United. We had Victor Gyokeres. We had Alexander Isak, who was never going to come to Arsenal because we weren't ever going to pay 130 million for him.
Yeah.
Breaking news. We were never going to do it. Even if we thought he fit like a glove, never spending 130 million on that kind of player in this part of our project. You had Hugo Ekitike, but and I like the player, but the rap on him was he was a poor finisher. He way underperforms XG, and his best months, whether you like it or not, were playing with what's his face, who's now at City, when he was in Germany. So Marmouche. So
Chris is forgetting all the names today.
I know, man. Sorry.
Just keep on giving the descriptions. This is a fun game.
Good Lord. Yeah, it's like
keep me around, guys.
Player. Yes, exactly. So either way, you're taking a massive risk on players. So what do? Do we go for the young guy who's never played in the Premier League? You know, not only are you having to adjust for a difference in style, in league, in competition, but also you've got to wait to see if they're even going to come good because they're 21, 22, 23. Do you go with the old head like Victor Gyokeres, who's shown at some level he can score consistently? And then you look at profiles, right? Like, do we want another guy who can drop deep and play a lot like the guys we already have, or do we want a different kind of profile that plays more like a traditional number 9? We ended up going with a guy that plays the traditional number 9, that's a bit older, that scored a crap ton of goals in a lesser league. And we rolled the dice and said, hey, we could use another profile. We could use a guy who plays differently, you know, for in games where maybe there's a bit more space. We can play a bit more on the counter. You know, maybe it's going to increase our tempo. He's going to score some goals. That's the bet we made. The problem is when you bet on that kind of player, what you're doing is you're saying, and you're putting all your chips in the center of the table, and you're saying, this guy better score goals then, at least 15 a season, at that age and at that payout, because he's not going to do a lot of anything else. And I heard all sorts of things like, oh, this guy's hungry. Oh, he wants it so bad. Oh, he's got a chip on his shoulder. Oh, you know, he fits that profile of player. And we all said it on this podcast. I'm not calling anybody out specifically. He seems like the kind of Arteta player that like Arteta likes, right? He's got something to prove. Mm-hmm. You know, he's had a really interesting kind of challenging journey to get here. And now all he needs to do is put it all together and show everybody that he belongs here. And he's got a real point to prove. And while all that stuff is true, what I don't think he has a lot of hunger, what that doesn't do is it can't overcome the lack of speed, that he cannot create separation from Premier League center backs. He has below average technical ability from the perspective of hold up, dribbling, passes, like things that you need a player to be able to do in his position. And then finally, if he doesn't have space, this guy can't get shots off. I mean, he's averaging 2.4 shots per game, I believe. I just looked at it. 2.54 shots per game. He's literally almost 2 shots a game less than he had in Portugal. And the shots he's getting off are of very low quality. So, and it's because we don't get space. Arsenal does not get space in this league. We get mid-blocked and low-blocked to death by almost every single team, City included, by the way. Mm-hmm. And so he's a guy that's going to have to learn to play in small space because he's not going to get the big space that he's used to in Portugal. And he's shown that when he doesn't get that space, he has a hard time getting shots off of any sort of quality. And if he doesn't have high quality chances, he looks like a very below average striker of the ball, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I'm going to close the argument by saying, while it sounds like I was defending him at the very beginning, you know, while he does attract a lot of attention, I'm hoping that any guy who makes the kind of runs that he does and is as big as he is and who can strike the ball in the way that he can when he's open would do the same exact thing. He would demand that kind of attention, but it has to be more than that. If you're going to be a guy who's playing at the top of the game for the best team in the Premier League, and we need goals bad because, as we all talked about 20 minutes ago, we've struggled at times to score this season from open play. You've got to add more than that. You can't just be a guy who eats space. You have to be an end product guy as well. And he just hasn't delivered as much as I think we all would have hoped or expected.
I think you would struggle to find a club with our ambitions and our world and domestic profile with as poor of a starting 9 as him. And again, this is something I was in favor of it because I thought that pragmatically, I thought we needed just a guy who could just like the prototypical in our hemisphere is I was like like Chicharito, right? So Javier Hernandez, who's a Mexican striker who played all over Europe, including for Real Madrid. But he was somebody who did absolutely nothing besides get good shots off in the box. That's all he did. That's his entire career. He played at a super high level for a really, really long time, just being a box and shot monster. And I kind of thought that he was going to be a 15-ish goal per match, like again, beat him up, run into channels, score every third game type of striker, and he hasn't been that. And I think Chris is dead on. The issue is not being able to get your shots off, and not when you get your shots off, not making good contact. And I think that's I didn't expect him to be a high touch player. I didn't expect him to be a high technical player. We were not, speaking of, I don't know what the hell was going on in the chat with Gabriel, but like he's not going to be Olivier Giroud, who's like this elegant player with all these touches and flicks and all of this, but he needed to be a player that could put his foot through the ball and score goals. And I think at this point, we might as well have signed Ollie Watkins, because Ollie Watkins can run into you and run into channels and do it, but he can also shoot the ball and he can also strike the ball and everything. But here's the deal. Like, if Kai Havertz is still a footballer who plays football and is not dead and made of fucking paper mache, it becomes a lot less of an issue, especially because Gabriel Jesus has come back for the moment and is playing at a pretty high level, and it's okay. Like, I don't think that here's maybe it's a relatively, even if we win everything we want to achieve this year and it's platooning goals, I still think we're going to sign another striker next year. Like, I think we're going to try to do it again, run it back.
No way.
You don't think?
If Gabriel Jesus maybe, but I expect it to not be over 20 million or 30 million, like 30 million max striker. We're not bringing in a starting striker, is what I don't think so.
Probably that is to sell the Papa stands. Like, hey, you guys just won the Champions League in the Premier League. No, like you're not buying a $100 million striker. Like, that's fine.
Watkins on free.
Watkins. I would take Watkins on a free for what it's worth. But like, yeah, I think it's a very interesting situation because, again, if you want a striker that does all the stuff in between the boxes that help you win and defend and all that, you have Havertz and you have Jesus for that. They're both insanely good footballers between the 18-yard boxes. Like, we even see it now with, like, he's not even at speed, but like, and you talked about this when I was in my mission to find another Guinness in my house somewhere. Like the flicks and tricks and interchanging and pressing and all of that herring and everything. Like, Gyokeres is here for two reasons. One, because they really, really wanted to get a fox in the box who's just a chaos causer, shot getter. That's what they wanted, that profile. And two, he ended up being the cheapest striker that was available in that. Like, Liverpool literally bought £200 million worth of striker, and both were way more expensive than, like, you talk about Nick Voltamade, who's probably, in hindsight, might have been a nice fit for Arsenal with what he's doing. But he was twice what he should have been, a 35 to 40 million player.
And he didn't do anything before that season at Stuttgart last season.
And he had like 12 goals in
30
or 35 matches at Stuttgart. So he was like, that was a total punt. And he's worked out well so far. But we'll see the second half of the season when everybody's seen him one time. He has to start kind of countering stuff. And he mostly is just kind of heading the ball too. Like, he's mostly just like a chaos animal who's heading the ball and hitting scrambles and everything. So like, the flip side of the Gyokeres thing is like, who should we have signed? And everybody's like, oh, well, he should have signed Ekitike and he should have signed Isak. And it's like, again, like, to Chris's point, we're never spending at this point in the project, we're never going to spend that much money on that player. And here's the other thing, the flip, which I've said several times in our back channel, it's like paying. I mean, cheap is relative. I mean, this is, again, we're putting the bubble of the top 10 richest clubs in the world around all this shit that I'm talking about. But like, finding the cheapest forward of those strikers available meant that we could go and stretch and sign not only Eze, but we could sign Hincapie, which I think, even though Hincapie is not like a nailed-on starter, that guy being here has been ridiculously important in the last month.
So good. So good.
Unbelievably important, because we got down to bare bones and like, holy shit, we have a starter in the World Cup who is one of the best players in Germany, and he's like our third backup for left back. And
it's insane. And
center back. Like, would you trade like the idea that maybe Isak would have been healthy this year, because again, that's the other thing that we were always talking about with Isak's, like that motherfucker has only been healthy in like the last 18 months when he's been great, and every other time in his career he has been constantly hurt. He's had big injuries, he's had small injuries. He is like 6'3" and was about 150, but he's not a bulky player. So like, is he gonna break when he has to play? He got a late start this season. He fucking stunk when he did play, and then he just broke in half the second he got a bad tackle from that fucking blonde prick from Spurs. So like, would you trade Hincapié and this year at least for Hincapié and Gyokeres and probably Eze for him? Like, fuck no, I would not. Like, Isak, or like the point has been made that probably we can count on Gyokeres to like eat minutes and like knock around like an asshole up there, which is not a lot, but it is something. And I think there are outcome ranges where we spunk all of our money on players, and they don't even give us that. And I think Isak is one of those players that you are perpetually in danger of not even having to do that. And that's why you don't spend that money. And that's why I didn't want to spend the money on him when he was at Betis, or where the fuck was he? Was he at Betis? Is that where he came from? Sociedad. That's the reason why I didn't. And then that's the reason why his ass got shipped from Dortmund out to Spain. It has nothing to do with his talent. It's everything to do with his ability to be consistently physically able to play at a high level. And I think they bought insanely high, Liverpool did, and they are fucking regretting that. If they could return him back and have to lose 50 million to return him back to Newcastle, I think they would do it. Literally, I think they would say, keep the 70 million, take him back. I don't want to, we don't want to deal with him. Play Ekitike, and I want the rest of my money back for him. I think they would do that right now. And that is especially with I understand that Liverpool spends a shitload of money now, but I think that is a project altering error. Betting big on him,
no doubt,
and losing. I would rather spend 55 million on kind of a shit kicker forward that doesn't end up being that great, but plays and kind of eats up stuff for you and doesn't pan out. And you have him for 2 to 3 years and you fucking move him on for 15, 20 million, whatever. But again, provided you have Jesus and Havertz, who's on a long-term contract. Havertz is probably the starting striker come March if things go well. And then Gyokeres is more coming in and being the battering ram, which is really disappointing. But if there's any position for that to happen in, I think it's that position where we have two probably better options behind him, and then another emergency option that's quite effective too in Marino there. And then reappropriating those resources to Hincapié and Eze, who I do suspect Eze is going to have a big part to play in the rest of the season too. He's in a low ebb right now, but that's a very talented player who's going to have a lot to offer when the legs are tired as the season kind of goes out too. So
I think it's important too to acknowledge that the modern Premier League doesn't really platform number nines anymore. I'm just looking at the top scorers in the league. And outside of Haaland, who has 19 goals in 19 games.
Jesus, basically, right?
Absurd, yeah. And Igor Thiago, right, at Brentford, that has 11. Semenyo's got 9, but he's a winger. Mateta's got 8, but he's on pace for 15, which isn't. That's not elite. That's 15 goals that we were hoping to get from Gyokeres. You got Danny Welbeck with 8, he's 39.
Yeah,
who knows?
That's a big outlier.
Don't tell me he's.
So,
hold on. No,
he's not that old. I know. I'm making a point.
He's not my age, but so when I actually thought about who we would buy,
Albert Lewin is fucking 8, guys.
He's seven. It's 7 matches in a row. He's on a. But
he's the fourth highest goal scorer from a striker perspective, but tied for third. This is not a real, an elite scoring number 9 is not a real thing anymore outside of Haaland. It's
basically just Haaland. And that's what I thought too. When I was just kind of looking, it's who is a relatively low risk striker? It's literally Mateta who I thought we paid 60 million for Mateta. And it's he's going to have some of the same exact irritations and frustrations that we have with Gyokeres, because he's going to clunk around and he's going to find himself in good positions and lash at it because he's really big and strong and fast, but he's not a particularly technical player, right? And even with Mateta too, Mateta's not going to take penalties here. He takes penalties at Palace, So like, I would be interested to see what Mateta's non-penalty goal is. What does he have, like 6 non-penalty goals this year? 7 maybe? What
This
you
is
say
all
his
going
total
to
was?
pay
9?
off. This is all going to pay off when we're in the final. Where we got penalties in the Champions League, and Gyokeres is like a blood bank guarantee.
You bring him in. He hasn't touched the ball. He's had 3 touches all match, and he's played like 45 minutes. He just comes in and just cunts his penalty underneath the bar, and that's all he does.
Mateta's got 5 non-penalty goals.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Like when I pay $60 million for Mateta, it's basically the same amount of non-penalty goals that Gyokeres has. It's one more than he has.
Guys, just real quick, just to circle back on my initial point, because I do agree with what both of you guys are saying, that like that modern number 9, we're far removed from the era in which Batistuta, Romario, and Ronaldo existed in the same world, right?
Yep,
I agree with that. Football has changed drastically. We've even seen teams set up with the midfielder just playing as false nines. I'm not saying that I want 15, 20 goals. I'm simply saying that I literally feel, and this is going to sound hyperbolic, this is like one of those fucking clippable moments. I literally feel most of the time we're playing with the man fucking down when we start with Gyokeres. And that might be like really fucking damning. But if you told me you wanted to start, like literally, if you would have asked me if I wanted Merino starting as our striker last year versus right now, and I think you would have got 2 really different, answers. And right now, if you told me Mikel Merino was going to start versus Liverpool, I'd be like, okay, cool, we're trying something different. Now, fuck it, watch him go score a hat trick or something. I'm simply telling you, I am not over him. I'm not saying it's done for him. Some people, you want to go really hyperbolic, we should move him on in the summer. That's not going to fucking happen. Let's be realistic, gentlemen. We're not. That's where we can't afford to do what Manchester City does, right? We don't. We don't have the. We make a big purchase and we could just write it off thing. We don't. We're not that type of club. We don't have that ability. I am just generally distraught and underwhelmed with the nothingness that I feel that he brings to the squad. And I know these are really fucking harsh words to say about the player, but my goodness, dude, like, I don't know how to describe it. And for the people that tell me, I saw this stat saying we making the argument that we concede more goals when he's not on the field. Come the fuck on, guys. We're talking about a striker. Dude, like,
I think what he does is not.
I appreciate you guys being super positive, but I'm just saying, don't be afraid to. If you see something wrong, see something. I just don't look at it like I'm like. I've been on balance very optimistic about this fucking season. On balance, I've been stubborn, saying that I'm pretty sure. I haven't mentioned much the Champions League because I feel like it's a weird format, but I feel very confident about the league. And I could say all of that and still think that my striker's been a little shit. And I feel like that's okay to do that. That's all I'm saying. But
we agree with you, Mikey.
I think it's the biggest comment that I would say, it's like there's a nice stat in baseball. You can't do it on other sports because it's played differently, but it's called replacement level. Like, what is the most average player in this position? What would you expect them to do? And wins above replacements is a stat to measure how extraordinary that baseball player is relative to every other, just a normal guy, like literally the most average player at his position. I think that we are likely in a position where we're at or below somebody we paid 55 to 60 million for. Is basically any striker from any Premier League club would do about what he's doing. And that's bad. Like, if we're going to, like we've said, if that was all we were expecting, just go pay 25 million for Ollie Watkins then. You know what I mean? Like, at that point.
I guess that's where I'm at, dude. And I do agree with your point, Kelly, about the Liverpool fucked up purchasing both Isaac and Ekitike.
I think we might have been in for Ekitike if they did not get both of them.
Yeah, at least Berta and Arsenal had the common sense of saying, well, fuck, we wanted Šeško. That didn't work out. We can't have both of them. We have to choose one. At least we had the common sense for that. And like you said, ultimately, potentially that ended in us also acquiring Eza, who's not playing a whole lot, but Nkapie, who's come in clutch the last month or so, if I'm not mistaken. He's played left back and left center back. So, and he started off the season kind of hurt, didn't have much of a preseason. So he's been an excellent signing for us. So I don't, again, I feel like I'm justifying my position now because I've been coming off like, what I would refer to a little bit of a dick, but
no, he's been bad, Mike. You're right. Like, he hasn't been good. The things that is doing are the minimum you'd expect from a professional striker of his build and physical talent. Bare minimum. He can hit a penalty, but so can like 6 of our players. Like, we just watched them do a penalty shootout, and like we had 7 unsavable penalties. So like that skill is quite obviously not worth 55 to 60 million. And because he's like 27 years old already, there's not even a hit and hope. Like, he needs to figure out how to get his shot off and accurately, like really fast. Otherwise, he's just going to be an afterthought and a huge waste of money.
The one thing we haven't talked about him, this would be my final comment on Victor Gyokeres. He's built like the Incredible Hulk, but he plays like he's 6'2", 120 pounds, like soaking wet. I think he relishes contact, but for some reason, he spends more time on the ground from contact than he does on his feet. And I think he's used to getting the better of a center back by being physical. And he's not doing it in this league because the center backs in this league are a lot broader, a lot bigger, and a lot faster than he's used to. And so I don't know if he's trying to buy contact. I have a hard time rectifying the image of Victor Gyokeres with all the muscles, with all the size, and then seeing him on the ground so freaking often when he's going up against a very average center back. Like, I don't know how he does that with that physique. I don't know if he's trying to buy a ball or what, but he's not getting it.
Like, Arsenal has like 4 center backs that make like 150K a week. 5 center backs make like over 150K a week. Those are the best. Like, if you have to go and do that, these are the best players at the position. So they're not just big, not just strong, not just fast. They have leverage and balance. And I think maybe Gyokeres' big problem is that you can bulldoze people in Portugal and the Championship because they don't have the balance to go. Like, you got to pick a lane. You get a technical guy, you get a big guy, you get a strong guy. You get a guy with really good balance. Like, that's what you get in the Championship there. Like, you kind of pick an elite skill. And then you come into the Premier League and you have fucking Saliba, who's big and strong and fast and calm and has balance and is like has all the shit. There's a reason why these guys are making 200K. Like Guardiola, like R.I.P. Guardiola. But like, there's a reason why that guy at 6'3", 200 pounds could run like a fucking deer and shoot and head and balance, and you can't knock him off the ball. Like, it's a lot harder to do it there. And sometimes guys just fucking figure it out. Like, Voltemata might be like, the funniest thing about Voltemata is that he's the only guy that we could realistically get maybe out of that crew because he kind of went there. But again, he's still fucking took us like 75 million. He was worth like 35. He fucking was a flyer. And we don't know whether he might not score another goal for the next 15 matches. But like, I don't know, man. It's a really interesting situation. But I think there's no case to be made that we made the right choice. Like, there's 0 case to be made that he's playing really well and he's a really important part of this club for the next couple of years. Like, again, if we want to just buy a guy who's just going to eat minutes and be a big guy, like, I'm pretty sure we could have gone elsewhere and paid a fraction of what we paid and just had some guy fucking running into people and falling over. Even like guys like Kevin Schade, like, would have been better. And he's in the German national squad now too. And like, if you want to fast forward, like, go get Schade. I think he costs like 25 million. Like, they're again, Igor Jesus, like all these other guys who are like performing better than him. I don't know, man. It's an interesting one. Like, hopefully it's not one that we have to consider and think about a lot, because if we keep winning and Havertz comes back and Jesus keeps playing well, it matters a lot less. It's still a waste of money, but if we win a Champions League or Premier League, we're not going to give a fuck that we whiffed on one of our signings. Yeah. And especially too, if you look around, it's like, okay, well, if Nkapie is playing really well and all these other guys have like panned out and are playing super well, like, who cares? I mean, we care, and like the bean counters care, and it puts us at, I think his failure to be an impactful player right away puts our season in more peril than it should be if it were to work out. And again, working out in the sense of not him being like on 15 goals and chasing Holland down, like, who's really the best Scandinavian striker in the world, really? between Isak and Holland and Gyokeres. It's more like if he's a functional striker who has like 8 goals and is playing better and is less of an oaf, like is a top 8 to 9 striker, top half striker in the league as far as like output and like metrics and stuff, instead of being like just some fucking guy, which is, I think right now he's kind of just some fucking lumpy guy.
Just some fucking guy. That's the headline right there. He's just some fucking guy.
If he scores a brace versus Liverpool, next pod name is the fucking lumpy guy.
We're all just taking a picture like this, or we'll just ask. We'll Grok to do it.
We'll change
like
the podcast to not another Gyokeres podcast. Is what we'll do.
Well, that'll be the intro. Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Chris, with your last comment.
Oh, I have one. Oh,
was that an old private chat thing that you sent me? I just noticed that.
No,
I
sent it. Hey, do we have time for one more topic? I'm sure you got one in you, Mike.
Well, I mean, my Chris, Clear Lake Football Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one to end on, buddy.
Yeah, Dodgers FC Football Club.
You're the host.
Save the Bridge Football Club.
They're gonna start parking cars near yourself. They're gonna start parking cars for extra money on the pitch again.
Again, we discussed this slightly because I think one of you guys shared a screenshot of the bench that Manchester United had, and the manner in which both of these clubs have been ran still absolutely fucking boils. Like, just like I can't fucking reconciliate the manner in which this man decided to run a business. So let's shelf United for a little bit, with Amarin like begging to be fired. With some
player value obliterators at Manchester United.
But like, dude, they have had several managers. Mudryk, who was banned for substance abuse but then got cleared. They have allegedly agents hitting up the club asking why their clients who signed 6-7 year deals aren't getting minutes. The reports suggest that the reason they had to let Maresca go is because he wasn't happy with the conditions, because essentially he's not allowed to fucking choose the players that he wants to choose, from what it kind of gathers. So news breaks New Year's Eve, if you will, that Maresca is having disagreements with Chelsea, and they end up parting ways. This is a club that, for the 7 years that Mikel Arteta's been here, they spent nearly 600 million, and they're giving Mikel Arteta so much shit. Like, you have to win the league, fucking what phase of the process bullshit it is. And then here we are with Chelsea, right, who has spent nearly 2 billion, if not more than 2 billion, in the last 2-3 transfer windows, just buying players at insane prices on insane wages, because they believe that they're going to be like the housing market in America, in which the value is just going to continue to skyrocket, because somehow they're going to be able to play all of these players, increase their value, and sell, and for their fucking supporters to turn around and say, but we sold better than you, as some fucking win, when they can't even get a manager that wants to sustain the working conditions and where they're at as a mid-table club, borderline.
Respect him, Mike. They're the world champions, buddy. World champions.
I was going to finalize it with, but hey, they're world fucking champions of a thing that, a collective live group of human beings of maybe 60,000 in person collectively throughout the entire tournament decided to show up and watch this shit show here in America. My goodness, what a fucking shit show, dude. Like, I could pick like 4 players out of Chelsea that I would still think are salvageable, but I don't know how you spend 2 billion and still look like an average squad. So, Chris, anything you would like to add?
What a hell of a question. I have no idea how you spend 2 billion and have very little to show for it either. And I don't buy that whatever it was that they won last year, which was the third tier conference league and the Infantino, invitational was, preseason invitational was anything to laugh about. I think this is very true of Spurs as well. What I think winning the Europa League and then winning the Conference League and the Club World Cup did was it papered over all the cracks. I think it gave everybody a false sense of security of where those two projects were at, thinking it was way beyond what it actually was. And then all of a sudden you start seeing this season where they run into a hint of problems, where Maresca isn't allowed to do kind of average normal things that most managers of a club of that type are allowed to do, where this insane structure of, basically player trading that Chelsea does is allowed to fester on and be the sole reason for why they exist. Coloring everything they do means that they've acquired a whole club full of mercenaries, and it's the manager included. And if you're going to hire a bunch of mercenaries, boy, are they going to work hard when everything looks exactly perfectly aligned for them to achieve what they want to achieve. But as soon as things go remotely south, everybody's done. I mean, look at Cole Palmer. I mean, I know he's had his deficiencies in the past, but my God, like that guy does not play when he doesn't have the motivation to, when he doesn't have the ball, or when he's asked to play defense. That guy won't do any of it.
He looks like he has nutritional deficiencies as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's got a shit haircut too, but I digress. I mean, did you guys watch the game today? Because Kelly, you guys watched the game today because you only look half as dopey as he does, Kelly.
Yeah.
You couldn't do it if you tried, but they look
like my chin go away.
They look like they did not give a rat's ass today against City. I was shocked that City didn't put them to the sword with how much quality City has on the pitch. And what I think happened was Chelsea lulled City into a false sense of security where, hey, if City doesn't care, well, I'm not going to put in the effort to score more than one goal. And all of a sudden they got sucker punched in the last 10 minutes of the game or whatever it was. And before they knew it, the game ended 1-1. But I have not seen a team as disinterested in playing football as Chelsea was today. Maybe outside of Wolves on occasion this season, maybe West Ham. They looked god awful. No impetus. And I think if you're an agent of one of the bigger players on that team, I'd be shocked if you're not starting to inquire about what the plan is at Chelsea and maybe even looking at what your next destination is. Because to my point earlier, this is a club full of mercenaries. And they have no loyalty to anybody but themselves. They don't care about Chelsea. And so they're looking at their next opportunity if things don't course correct relatively quickly. And what I mean by that is like, next 5 games. This is not like next 3 years, play out my contract, because these guys aren't willing to wait. These guys want to go on to the next place where they think they're going to win something. And I hate to tell you, I'd love to tell you, it's not going to be at Chelsea.
I think the thing that we talked about earlier, we talked about culture and being selective of players.
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea's the opposite of that. They just spam young talents and see what works out. And again, the biggest thing that didn't make any sense is that players are not companies. If you buy stocks of young, maturing companies with big ideas and a lot of talent, they exist on their own and work within the marketplace on their own, and they rise and fall with their own talent and market timing and everything. You're not buying companies that all do the exact same thing and are competing against each other for time, because if you do that, certain things will succeed and certain things will not. They rise and fall in value at the expense of each other, and there's only so many minutes, and you have to go deep in all the tournaments to handle a squad of 40 professionals. And again, they're all in these really long-term contracts. And here's the other thing too. The problem is the type of player that it attracts. So you get players who don't go, oh shit, like, I don't know that I'm worth this. So like, I better sign this 7-year contract because it creates a minimum for the rest of my career at $90K a week. If I do better.
Annuity. It's like buying an annuity.
Yeah, for real. But the players don't. if that is their goal, was to get financial security, now they don't have to perform anymore because they've already signed their 70, 80K a year thing, and that takes them through their entire prime of their career. Which is the sell. That's the pitch that you go. It's like no matter what happens, if you get hurt, if you're like Wesley Fofana, which remember that Wesley Fofana was at one point considered a better center back prospect than William Saliba is right now. It creates no matter what, Wesley, you're going to get paid $100,000 a week until you're in your early 30s. That's a great parachute because outside of the Premier League and the very top of the other domestic leagues, you cannot get that much money. And no matter what happens, and Fofana has responded in kind by constantly being injured and tearing his ACL and shit. And like, but who cares? He's got 4 more years in his contract making $80,000 a week. Now William Saliba, his partner in crime through all the youth national teams and stuff, like Saliba is going to make $250. His next contract with Saliba is probably going to be he's going to be the highest paid center back in the world in his next contract. But he had to take a risk to play, and he had to be exposed to playing and had to be in high leverage situations to earn that. But that's like, but Saliba also has the content of character and ambition to do that. The problem is when you're Chelsea, and that's what you have to offer, you get people who are very comfortable grabbing the rope and being like, we'll figure it out later. I got my money now. That's what I wanted to do. That's the number one thing is I'm going to be a highly paid professional under a guaranteed contract for the entirety of my prime. And now I put my feet up. And that's the problem. You have people that want that. You have people like Madueke, which I think is more, I'm going to use this as an audition to go someplace else. But again Madueke is like, oh, shit. One of your huge rivals, yeah, fuck you. Like, send me there. I'm going right now. Like, let me go.
Didn't hesitate.
Didn't hesitate at all. Is like, and all he does is talk about how great Arsenal is. And it's been a model citizen and all the stuff that, like, the kind of knocks that they had at Chelsea. He's on a real team now, so he doesn't do that shit anymore because it's serious now. And, like, you don't want to be that if you're Chelsea. Like, you don't want to be that because getting a ton of talent and an astronomical number of very talented players can help you win depth competitions and friendlies like Club World Cup and the third tier Mickey Mouse European Cup. But when push comes to shove and you're in the fucking Premier League and you're in the Champions League, you cannot do that shit. You cannot have Badiashile and Wesley Fofana and Caicedo, who loves to kick people in the knee. So all he's going to do is go and kick people in the knee at like $100 million. And again, Cole Palmer, who's bottom lip goes directly into his neck and only plays for penalties and can't, when people plan for him, can't ratchet it up. And now it's really hard to come back from injury. He can't fucking do that now. Like, you reap what you sow, and they are sowing an awful lot of the quality of person that they reap. And fuck them. That's great. I hope that's a dysfunctional business model, which is designed to keep people unhappy and unsatisfied. And at some point, those players and managers and staff members that are unhappy and unsatisfied for long enough, they're going to be like, oh, fuck you. And if you keep me here, I'm going to be miserable and act like a prick, or I'm just going to tell you to fuck off and I'm going to ruin your season. And good.
I go search Chelsea's payroll and I laughed because I generally forgot, dude. Top earner, 325 K a week.
Sterling
expires until 2027. Raheem Sterling.
It's remarkable.
I legitimately
they could probably use him right now.
250 Reece James 2028. Fofana 200K until 2029.
He sucks. He's never been good. He had him in 200K
contracts. I shit you
not.
How
many Fofanas do they have? Are you even looking at the right Fofana? Is it Wesley or what?
It is Wesley. Yeah,
okay.
It's Wesley, dude. But look, a lot of their contracts: Enzo Fernandez until 31, Neto 31, Caicedo until 31.
You're stuck with Pedro Neto.
Even Haidt, who just arrived, their contract doesn't expire until 2033.
He doesn't even play.
Just today.
But like even if you have a guy like that on like 80 or 90 grand, like it's really hard to sell that guy. And even you sell him, like sometimes when they'll sell players too, like I even would argue that they spent a good amount of money on Madueke. Like the way they spent 35 million on Madueke, they sold him for 50. Like you took all the risk on that player and played him a ton, and he got good and showed his versatility, and you only made like 15 million on him. That's not committing 2 years of a primary attacking position and then just flipping the guy. That's not a good business move. Like you made $7.5 million a year to do what? You can't do anything with 15 million. And like Arsenal's like, hey, thanks very much. I liked that guy a couple of years ago. You proved that he could play in the Premier League and be a contributor, and now he's comfortable. And he's got a house in London, so he doesn't even have to change his house or anything. He's just going to come over and go to a better team. So here's an extra $15 million on top of what you paid, and we'll go ahead and take him for his prime years. Thanks, Chelsea. Like that whole deal was always so funny to me because it's like, dude, they took the risk on him. You're basically paying $15 million on top of that huge risk for a much better player than what they got from PSV, who was out of the academy. So like, I'm sure Arsenal would be totally fine with like, okay, Chelsea, like you go and take all the risk and you develop a good player and we will pay you $50 million for a £50 million player, but we will not pay $35 to $40 million for a player. We don't know if they're going to be any good or not. So you go ahead and take that risk and we'll just come and give you a little bit extra money and take them off you and you're going to be good.
The last player on the list that has 6 figures, 100K, is Levi Colwill.
Levi Colwill. Well, I will say Levi Colwill is actually a good prospect, but his knee exploded, I think.
Yeah, that's fucking insane, though. Like the majority of their contracts have at least 5 to 6 to run, so it's absolutely fucking insane.
They are going to be stuck with absolute prisoner contracts, where they're going to have to pay it off in full, or they're just going to loan army it, and they're going to be on loan at Herenveen for 2 years.
They have to either sell at a loss or they'll sell, and the players are just going to have to accept that they're going to take a massive hit. So, yeah. Chris, go ahead. Hopefully that last one was correct.
Yeah. I don't know if we're ready to close the show, but I didn't want to miss out on one image that Gabriel shared with me online today that I found. Did you guys see Cody Gakpo score in the 94th minute to celebrate because they thought he had won it?
I saw a brilliant meme. You know that the line where the guy's like, "Look at me."
Mean this one?
That's the one.
Look at me on Richarlison now, dude pulled the biggest Richarlison. Cody Richarlison right here takes his shirt off. I'm sure he got a yellow card. I didn't see if he did or not. I'm sure he did. And then Liverpool proceeds to give up a goal, like maybe the goal of the season.
Harrison with this once in a career, like 25-yard postage stamp worldie. Make nobody care about that at all. It's like it makes me so happy when that happens, and especially if we can please collectively as a community, a world football community, make Richarlisoning a word. Like an actual verb, which is taking your shirt off when you think you've accomplished something, only having it to be canceled out soon after by another goal.
You just went full Richarlison.
You never want to go full Richarlison.
Never go full Richarlison.
Because that guy too. You get to the locker room and it's like a teammate. He just goes, fuck, man." It's like, yeah, I know. It's like I'm not going to be able to get away from this for a couple of days, are we? And it's like it's going to be one of those funny things at the top of everything. It's like, before we get into the football, let's talk about Cody Gakpo. It's like the place you never want to be as an international sports star. Like, before we talk about the real stuff, how about this asshole? Like, that's going to be the line of conversation tomorrow, which is going to be great.
At least Gabriel Jesus did it right. He took his shirt off on a goal that actually stood and meant something, and had a shirt on underneath it still.
Yeah,
so.
He pulled a caca, so I'll allow it.
We are the Christ bros at Arsenal.
We are.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. So, boys, we're gonna end it there. There was props to anybody that stuck around with us for this ranting.
Gabriel.
Yeah, Gabriel.
Thank you. And if you're gonna listen to us on audio, props for you, because this was an algorithm of a bunch of news clips and stories that happened in the last few months.
Yeah.
Some pent-up Gyokeres anger, some laughter for Chelsea, of course. So, it was good. It was needed for us on the podcast. As Gabriel said, literally, we aim to be a pod that kind of sounds like it's just mates at a bar, and I think we accomplished that more or less today, because we had some pretty decent laughs. It's always helpful that the Arsenal are in a rich vein of form. 6 points clear from Chelsea, from 14 or 16 points clear from Chelsea.
17.
I don't challenge you.
6 points clear from City, should I say, who shat the bed, versus I think Chelsea just bored them to death. until they finally just allowed him to score a goal. They thought the game was over because Chelsea
Rock 'em
wasn't
to
trying, and then boom, somebody scored a goal. So Enzo Fernandez out of all of them. But I'm going to end the podcast there. Kelly, of course, you can find him at South Metro AFC on the Twitters. Chris, you can find him at West Suburban AFC on the Twitters. Me, I've been Mike Hers FC on the Twitter. So you could find us on YouTube, of course. Tell a friend if you're listening to us on audio. You could also find us on Spotify and Apple iTunes, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember how this goes. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we're coming back to our regular weekly schedule. We shall see. Until then, next time. Peace.
Right foot this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Ketchia, it's in, it's 4. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.